Krishna.
Jai.
Nice tune. There you go. You all want to read the verse in the first paragraph of the purport while we're in your home? It's
I read that.
if I'm correct, it's the third verse, second chapter, first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. And we've been having really good success last couple of weeks by anybody just jumping in. You don't necessarily have to wait. I mean, I'll call on you eventually, but you don't have to wait for me to call. If you think of something to say, some contribution, then jump in. That'll be more the churning feeling,
Yasvanubhavam akila shruti saramekam akyatma deepam atitirshataam tatodham tamodham samsarinam karunaya purana bhujam tam vyasa sunumupayami guru maninam. Yeah, word for word.
The translation and the first paragraph of the purport, if you will.
Okay. Let me offer my respectful obeisance to him Shuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest region of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated by it by experience. In this prior, Srila Sutta Goswami practically summarizes the complete introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary, supplementary commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Vedanta Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras, were compiled by Vyasadeva with a view to presenting just the cream of Vedic knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on this cream. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was a thoroughly realized master on the Vedanta Sutra, and consequently, he also personally realized the commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam. And just to show his boundless mercy upon bewildered materialistic men who want to cross completely over nations, he recited the first time this confidential knowledge.
Any comments?
Like next what is Srila Prabhupada explaining, the real religion is ahaitu apratikata. So it's no reason, causeless and uninterrupted. And so Srila Prabhupada is oftentimes explains the religion when it teaches how to love God, and it can be tested. And otherwise, so the Shukadeva Goswami it was like by his compassion recited this verse. So Srimad Bhagavatam was a supplementary natural commentary to Bhagavatam, and also Srila Prabhupada was explaining that the Mayavadis couldn't touch the Bhagavatam because Bhagavatam is the highest. The highest scripture that cannot touch anyone. And when Shankaracharya, he even didn't touch the commentary of Bhagavatam, like Vedanta Sutra. And also others, Prince Prabhupada says, and nobody can understand the Vedanta Sutra without commentary. And he's telling you, maybe on this planet, maybe 1-2% can understand Bhagavatam. So that's Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Pavana, you want to add anything?
I'm waiting for the next paragraph. I have something to say about that one.
Okay. Who wants to jump in here?
So, the first paragraph is Vedanta Sutra, as Srila Prabhupada describes also, it's like churning the milk and then the cream comes out. That is what Bhagavatam is. So after churning everything, all Vedanta and Vedas, and that's what Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote Bhagavatam eventually on his advice of his own guru, Narada Muni. So this first paragraph is really the essence of, it describes the essence of Bhagavatam actually. And we can wait for the next verse, next paragraph.
Oh, very good point. I think the last 2-3 sentences also talks about once you churn the butter, and you know you have the cream, what do you do with that cream? And I think that's the message here, that for the benefit of materialistic individuals, he also recited or shared that knowledge when he was doing it with the Parikshit Maharaj for the first time.
We generally accept that the Bhagavad Gita is what the Mahabharata's all about. It's Mahabharata is 10 times longer than the Iliad and the Odyssey. And it all culminates in the Bhagavad Gita, the conversation that Krishna has with Arjuna just prior to the onset of the hostilities. The Prabhupada says that people are not interested in following the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. They're interested in all the other stuff about the Mahabharata, the politics, the love affairs, the battles, the conspiracies, the exile, the various demigods. That has fascinated people in India for thousands of years. We all know that when the Mahabharata was serialized, like 60 one-hour shows, 15, 20 years ago, they said you could walk down any street in India and hear the whole episode without any interruption, because every house would have it on. So that intrigues people, the stories, the pastimes, the narratives. But as far as the Bhagavad Gita is concerned, people, generally speaking, they're not interested in the Bhagavad Gita, because the Mahabharata is about artha, dhamma, kama, moksha, sense gratification, economic development, liberation, and religiosity. And that people are interested in. And those are the general themes of the Mahabharata. But when it comes to pure bhakti, unalloyed bhakti, which is described in the Bhagavad Gita, people gloss over that. There's no action. And so then you might also say that Srimad Bhagavatam is commentary on the Bhagavad Gita also. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam does not carry over the Mahabharata. It carries over some of the stories and the narrative, but it carries it over in such a way as to divest itself of fruitive activities and mental speculation. So in a sense, those people who are seriously interested in understanding the Bhagavad Gita as it is, then they go to the Bhagavatam as a postgraduate course. Then
Bhagavad Gita is priming, or conditioning, and then when you become conditioned, you're ready, then you jump into Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita is preparation to Bhagavatam.
And the people who are not truth seekers, they don't jump from the Gita to the Bhagavatam. They're only interested in that which surrounds the Gita, the Mahabharata. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that whenever he was growing up, people would speak critically of the Bhagavatam. They would just say, "Oh, it's just folklore, it's just stories." And when he finally wanted to read the Bhagavatam, he couldn't even find a copy. It took him a long time before he could even find a copy. It had become so much out of the main circulation, and that's the way it is. 99% of the people are interested in the four principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. They're not interested in surrender. So if you have the Bhagavatam and you have the Mahabharata, they'll read the Mahabharata. So Bhagavatam is truly Atmaramas cha muneo nigranti. It's truly for the swan-like people. And some or other, although we could hardly be described, or you guys are all swan-like, but I wasn't swan-like, and so some or other. Prabhupada.
It's not true, Prabhu. It's not true. India, it's not like now changed. I have seen from 80s. It's very difficult. I bet you more than 80% of people they don't know the difference between Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam in India.
I would say 95%.
Yeah, more. I was talking with somebody this morning, and the principle, they say, oh, the God has sent us to this world to enjoy, so we should enjoy. Who knows what will happen? We don't know what next life or something. So we are here to enjoy. That's what the concept is among, people, and, which is unfortunate. They don't understand. It took me 45 minutes just to explain actually just few sentences, purpose of life.
And the people's prejudice is so strong against giving up material pursuits that when they read the Gita, they twist some other meaning out of it. They don't want to hear the actual message of the Gita. So how many times have we heard someone from India saying the Gita says this or the Gita says that, when in fact the Gita said nothing of the sort. That was just what they wanted to hear. So they didn't read the Gita with an idea of understanding it. They read the Gita with an idea of trying to fit it to their own prejudice and preconceptions.
Manipulation.
Yeah.
That's their own version of the Gita, Prabhuji. Heard it many times. My version of the Gita.
What do they say? The Bhagavad Gita, not as it is, but as they would like it.
Yeah, that's true, Prabhuji.
As it should be.
As it should be.
Or the Bhagavad Gita according to
or as it is.
Bhagavad Gita
As it is.
So the most misunderstood verse is 4.47.
And then Bhagavad Gita is also in terms of language also. In Sanskrit in Bhagavad Gita it's simple. So you prime yourself first. And then Sanskrit in Bhagavatam is melodious and of course difficult. Somebody says that, even if you're a scholar in Sanskrit, and if you want to go to the next step, you should read Bhagavatam. It's so melodious and so different. Every meter, everything, every verse changes, so fast.
And one thing I heard recently, Prabhuji, in fact, yesterday, it was like, oh, even for the small kids, they start saying, oh, don't do this, don't do that, don't eat meat, don't eat this, don't eat that. And then if we ask why, then they have a scripture for that. They say, oh, because the scripture says that. So they have prepared a menu for this. So I'm like, man, they can call a scripture a menu. I'm like, okay, there is no point arguing or putting any point, but like they have done a very good preparation for that. They know how to counteract. So they're like, it's a menu. Nobody has seen God. Nobody knows what happens after that. It's just a saying. I'm like, okay, if you believe so, then that's fine. There's no point saying anything about it.
Speaking of menu, thanks to you, Rakesh Prabhu. Yesterday's menu was wonderful. And we are so thankful to you that you prepared it all by yourself for the first time. And it was still really tasty. And
I was scared, Prabhuji. Honestly, I was scared. I love cooking. I do it at home. But cooking for 2 people and cooking for 20, 25 people is different. Hats off to Rasvilas Prabhu. Prabhuji, you are amazing. You have been doing it for such a long time. I dared to turn 3 gases on at the same time. And I thought, okay, let me start the 4th preparations at the same time. But then I got lost. I had to turn the 4th one off. And I was like, there's no way I can work on 4 at the same time. I had to turn that off. Otherwise, my preparation was getting burnt. But, yeah,
you still do it on a day when you want to prepare again. You can have all for fun.
How many preparations were there in the end?
5, Prabhuji.
Hari Bo.
And we finished 2 of them completely, and Michelle and her husband said, we love this. We need a recipe of the garbanzos. And they packed it for home and took it.
Did Ras Vilas approve? Did you approve of all the tastes, Ras Vilas?
We talk in the afternoon. Prabhu, you use the garbanzo, the boiled garbanzo with squash?
I guess he's...
Kapil, you were going to say something about a verse in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavatam?
Oh, 4.47. You ask anyone in India, even in their sleep, they say, oh, I know Bhagavad Gita. It says about karma, right? And that's what I do. 7 to 7. But I think that's the most misunderstood. It's like the verse itself has 3 parts, and you just pick the first one that supports your narrative, and you say that's the Bhagavad Gita is all about that half. The 1/4 of a particular verse, I think that is the biggest example of ignorance.
How many times have you heard people say, yeah, the Bhagavad Gita says Krishna tells Arjuna, just do whatever you want to do?
This morning. I heard this morning.
I mean, why would Krishna have taken the trouble to speak the Bhagavad Gita? Why would Krishna even descend? I mean, why all this why all this arrangement just for Krishna to tell Arjuna, do whatever you feel like doing?
I agree.
Yeah, they even say, Prabhuji, that even Mahabharata there was fight and they used to kill animals. What's wrong now in eating meat? So I
have a question.
Go for it.
Hi, boy.
Okay, so what's your question?
I have a question. Is Vishnu the incarnation of Krishna or is Krishna the incarnation of Vishnu Bhagavan?
Who wants to answer that question? Have to warn you that every school teaches that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. So if you give any other answer, you're going against this all of academia.
Brahma says Krishna tu param Brahm, right? So even Brahma, right?
Yes.
So Brahma himself says that Krishna is Param, Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in first canto, if you go to third chapter, third chapter, you will see that it describes different forms of Vishnu, how different forms of Vishnu emanates from Krishna, actually. Sarvodhara Vishnu, Chirodhara Vishnu, okay, and then they take the roles, they enter into different atoms and expansions. So they all are expansions of Krishna.
Yeah, the front page of our first canto it explains everything. Say thank you to the Prabhuji. Did he answer your question?
Yes, thank you,
Also,
Prabhuji.
also when Brahma stole the cows and calves and then looked back after 1 year by Earth's calculations, he saw so many Vishnus. Every cow and calf had been transformed into a Vishnu. You never read anywhere about Vishnu producing Krishna, but you read about Krishna producing millions and millions of Vishnus. So Krishna could not be an incarnation of Vishnu because Krishna is the source of millions and millions of Vishnus. There's no way that Vishnu could have preceded Krishna. All the scriptural evidence, all the stories indicate that Krishna preceded Vishnu. And when Krishna was exhibiting his pastimes on the planet, Vishnu stole the sons of the Brahmins just so that he could drink in the beauty of Krishna, just so that Krishna would be forced to bring Arjuna to the place where Vishnu was residing. Because Vishnu, he wanted to see the beauty of Krishna. That means that Vishnu himself does not have as much beauty as Krishna. Otherwise, why would he be interested in seeing something that's equal or less than him? He wants to see beauty that surpasses him. And if Krishna's beauty surpasses Vishnu, then there's no way that Vishnu could have created Krishna. You can't create something that's more than you are. The more creates something, and the something that's created is at best equal if you're absolute, but mostly it's less. So Vishnu is like 96%. He doesn't have the beauty of Krishna. He doesn't live on the same planet as Krishna. He doesn't have the same opulence as Krishna, nor does he have the same friends as Krishna. Close, but not 100%, 96%.
Yes,
And it doesn't dance like Krishna.
And that's one of the very common question and the confusion some people have is like, okay, if Krishna is born in Mathura and even before Krishna there were so many other incarnation, Ram and others from the Vishnu, then it means Krishna is also an incarnation of Vishnu. So that's a pretty common confusion people have.
It's not that Krishna temples started 5,000 years ago. There were so many Krishna temples going back thousands and thousands of years before Krishna himself actually appeared.
Yes, Prabhuji.
And then, okay, let's just say for argument's sake. So let's say the president is a Republican and the governor of Utah is a Republican. So the president wants to visit Utah. So he won't bypass the governor. He'll make sure he gets the invitation. So then the governor can say to everybody, oh, look what a big man I am. I invited the president and he came because of me. So that means that the president is supporting his own party member in that local state. So the president comes as a guest of the governor of Utah, but that doesn't mean the president is less than the governor of Utah. He's more than the governor of Utah. He's just observing a certain protocol because they're both in the same party. So even if for argument's sake you were to say that Krishna comes through Vishnu, it still doesn't mean that Vishnu created Krishna or that Vishnu preceded Krishna. It just means that Krishna is respecting the position of his expansion.
Charu, do you mean that the governor cannot say that I am the best governor since Lincoln?
That was the president. That was the president.
Shubhi, very good question, bete. Shubhi,
If you want
like,
what?
Sorry. I was just saying that Shubhi, very good question. Shubhi, do you like Vishnu more or Krishna more?
Krishna ji. Krishna ji.
Huh?
Krishna
That's
ji.
your, that's your answer. Whatever you like is the best.
I hope you realize Kapil is being funny there. All right.
Both factually and analytically, it's very easy to understand, that Krishna is Supreme Personality of God. And even factually you see and analytically say, okay, we had this analogy last time, right? One Englishman saw many gods and demigods, and when he saw Krishna's, he said, oh, he must be Supreme Personality. I think Kapil Prabhu brought that analogy. And why? Because he's like free playing flute, and that's what Supreme Personality of Godhead does, right? No, nothing to do. It just enjoys, right? So.
Nahi kastid sanamapi jatut. No, it's a name partashti kartavyam trichu lokasha. Nanavaptim vaptim parteva chakamani. Utsidigori me loke nakoryam karma cheda. Nakoryam karma. Said there's nothing for me to do. Sankarashita upahanyam. But he just acts to set an example, because if God didn't act, then everybody would follow his example and not go to work, not pay taxes, not go to school. They'd say, well, if God doesn't do it, why should I do it? So Krishna doesn't have to act, but he acts in such a way as to set an example. Also, Lord Brahma, you quoted Brahma Samhita also. Lord Brahma is praying all these prayers to Govinda. Every verse, Govindam Adipurusham Tamahang Bhajami. So he's obviously talking about Govinda. He's not talking about Vishnu. And he says, Deparcharevad hi dasantanam abhapeta dipayate. He says, Krishna is like, Govinda is like the original flame. And then from that flame, you light other flames. And those other flames, those are Vishnu. So from one Krishna, you get millions of Vishnus. But you never get, you can take millions of Vishnus and you'll not get one Krishna. So who wants to read the second paragraph? Pavana said yeah, go ahead and read it. And don't forget Pavana. Yes.
Yeah, Mother, you mind on second. Why don't you read?
Pavana.
Oh, no, you go ahead. You go ahead and read. You go ahead and read it.
Okay, but you have to jump in at some point with your contribution.
I will. I sure will.
All right.
So if two people are arguing, third person takes to take advantage. I can read, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Jai.
Go ahead, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. There is no point in arguing that a materialistic man can be happy. No materialistic creature, be he the great Brahma or any insignificant ant, can be happy. Everyone tries to make a permanent plan for happiness, but everyone is baffled by the laws of material nature. Therefore, the materialistic world is called the darkest region of God's creation. Yet, the unhappy materialist can get out of it simply by desiring to get out. Unfortunately, they are so foolish that they do not want to escape. Therefore, they are compared to the camel who relishes thorny twigs because he likes the taste of the twig mixed with the blood. He does not realize that it is his own blood and that his tongue is being cut by the thorns. Similarly, to the materialist, his own blood is as sweet as honey, and although he is always harassed by his own material creations, he does not wish to escape. Some materialists are called, Such materialists are called karmi. Out of thousands of thousand karmis, only a few may feel tired of material engagement and desire to get out of this labyrinth. Such intelligent persons are called Gyanis. The Vedanta Sutra is directed to such Gyanis, but Srila Vyasadeva, being the incarnation of Supreme Lord, could foresee the misuse of Vedanta Sutra by unscrupulous men, and therefore he personally supplemented the Vedanta Sutra with the Bhagavad Purana. It is clearly said that this Bhagavatam is original commentary on the Brahma Sutra. Srila Vyasadeva also instructed Bhagavatam to his own son, Srila Sukdev Goswami, who was already at the liberated stage of transcendence. Srila Sukdev realized it personally and then explained it by the mercy of Srila Sukdev. The Bhagavad Vedanta Sutra is available for those sincere souls who want to get out of this material existence. My quick point on this second verse is it talks about the understanding of the knowledge, but then also living the knowledge. I think few classes ago, we did talk about this analogy that someone goes to Prabhupada and says that within 1 hour, 40 minutes, I can recite the entire Bhagavad Gita. And then Prabhupada says that, can you live Bhagavad Gita for 1 hour? And I think that has such a profound impression on me, because I'm not saying that it's easy to get the knowledge, but there is a process to get the knowledge. But once you have the knowledge, do you really assimilate the knowledge, absorb the knowledge, and more importantly, can you personify or live that knowledge? I think that's the hardest part, and that's what being highlighted in this verse.
There's a story about Mark Twain in Boston, a very rich man who had gotten rich by unscrupulous, unethical business practices, was talking to Mark Twain at a gathering, an evening gathering, and he told Mark Twain, he said, my wife and I want to go to Mount Sinai in the Holy Land and stand on the place where God delivered the 10 Commandments to Moses. And without missing a beat, Mark Twain said, it would be better for you to stay in Boston and follow the 10 Commandments.
So what in my work, as a psychologist, and I see people who come in and they're suffering in some way, and that's why they seek a therapist, right? My life is not going very well. And it reminds me of this passage about the camel. The camel likes to chew up thorny twigs because he likes the taste of the blood and doesn't realize it's his own blood that he is tasting. And sometimes that's what I deal with when I'm dealing with some of my clients, because I will give them, here's the things that you can do to get you out of the miserable situation that you're in. And sometimes, there's extreme measures that need to be happening. Somebody's being abused physically by an abusive spouse, doesn't matter which gender, you can get out of that. There's help, there's community help. And they will say, I can't do that. They will prefer to just stay stuck where they're at.
Prabhupada says that's why they don't want to escape. You're talking about abusive situations. And what you're saying is just what Prabhupada said. People don't want to escape.
That's exactly it.
So just like Vyasadeva is advising them, Sukadeva is telling them, Prabhupada says all you have to do to escape is want to. Would it be true to say, Pavana?
Yes.
That's the main thing that you're dealing with. It's not the problem, but it's the lack of desire on the part of your client to want to escape from the problem.
For so many reasons. They will list them off for me. And I go, well, you can either stay stuck there or not. It's your choice.
You know, it's a fact that oftentimes the bad situation is not someone's undoing, but it's their lack of or their reaction to the bad situation, which is far more dangerous to them than the actual situation itself.
It keeps them bound to the situation.
Exactly.
And as long as they have that attitude, they'll never get out of it. But those are the clients that after I see them one time and tell them what I think they, could possibly do to get out of it, they generally don't come back. Because they know I'm going to hold their feet to the fire, right?
I remember one time we had this older car, my wife and I, when we were in the Los Angeles Temple, we were driving east on the 10 freeway, and there was some noise coming from under the hood. And we had to be somewhere at a certain time. It was making us late. So I pulled over right on the freeway, and I opened the hood to look in, and I was upset and agitated and everything. And I was thinking, why did this happen to me? I'm just serving Krishna. I'm just trying to do my best. Why did this happen? And so I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't cool and calm. So I thought I closed the hood, and I got back in the car, and then I started driving east on 10. I'm going 70 miles an hour. And because I wasn't thinking clearly and I was agitated, the hood flew right up. I hadn't actually closed the hood. So we're driving east on I-10, and the hood flew right up. I couldn't see a thing, and I'm going 80 miles an hour. So I realized that my dealing with the problem created a problem that was much, much worse than the original problem.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Response versus reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we do, right? As Mataji said, we tend to react, but the tendency to develop the response, right? It comes from, scriptures, comes from reading, comes from associating with, devotees.
It's hardly ever the problem. The problem is hardly ever as bad as when you overreact, when you get all emotional, when you have a pity party and you think, oh, why am I being picked on? Then you're going to do something that's going to be much worse than the original problem. Much, much worse. So the thing is, don't panic. Be cool and calm. Thank Krishna that he's always in control no matter what. You might have problems, but you'll never compound your problems. And Krishna will never send you a problem that if you're cool and calm, that you can't solve, or you can't deal with it. But it's only when you don't trust Krishna and you fly off the handle, then you create a problem that you can't deal with. But otherwise, the original problem, Krishna wouldn't have sent it if he didn't also send you the means to handle it. But because you didn't rely on Krishna, you didn't trust Krishna, then you made a much bigger problem that now Krishna doesn't have to be responsible for. You created that.
The universal problem is when people say to themselves, this proposition, it applies everywhere. What is should not be. And that's the source of most suffering. And if you just say, what is, and I am with Krishna, and so it is, and it's not a problem.
Or at least it's not a problem that I can't solve with Krishna's help.
Right. I want to divert. It still relates to this paragraph, but a little bit different. I'm trying to find a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna announces that he's going to give the knowledge, and I can't remember it well enough to say. And so when I first read Bhagavad Gita, I thought, okay, I'm going to get the truth, a statement, propositions that are true. And the answer instead and I've thought about this a lot since then, is not any truth statement the way you would conventionally think of it, but it's a set of characteristics and attitudes. The truth is humility, forgiveness, understanding. And I know it's in here. I've been trying to find it, and it's a very, very long list, but Krishna says that it's that mindset that is actually the truth. Maybe I have it a little off, but somebody, Prashant would know.
Where's Prashant when you need him?
Yes, where's Prashant when I need it?
It might be in the 6th chapter. 6, 11, 12, 13, something like that, possibly.
Well, I don't want to get everyone sidetracked looking for this, but I thought the notion that the truth is not so much something that's out there, although there certainly is that truth that is available, but that the truth is really the perfection of your own vision of everything, which is the purification of yourself. I mean, I think that is really what the essence was of that verse, which
that is 7.
Chapter 13, verse 8.
It says, I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know.
And where are
Chapter 13, verse 8.
Okay, yes, this is it.
Chapter 13, verse 8. 8 to 12. It talks about humility, non-violence, everything. It's a long verse. Atmitam, atamvitam, amisha, kasmit, arjavam, archa, prashano, shocham, sachitra, atma, vinigraha. Like humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, and then so many other things Krishna mentions, aspiring to live in a solitary place. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever they may be, is ignorance.
That's the one. Thank you.
13:8.
Well, we say the absolute truth is not a set of precepts, but the absolute truth is a person. That ultimately, when you pursue knowledge as far as you can go, you end up at the lotus feet of Krishna. So it's not surprising that truth be described more in terms of personal qualities than in terms of abstract precepts, isn't it?
No.
In other words, God is perfect. He's the supreme perfect person. And so perfection of our life is what's the highest degree of godly qualities that we can inculcate.
The knowledge is Krishna consciousness. I mean, all of this is just the description of Krishna consciousness.
Exactly.
There's nothing else really to know. This is the knowledge.
It's Vijnanam. Jnanam is abstract knowledge, theoretical knowledge. Vijnanam is applied knowledge. You might have a wrench, but what good is it to just know that you have a wrench or know what the wrenches can do? You need to use the wrench. So that would be that. So similarly, we know ultimately that we're spirit souls. We're not this body. A little higher level of knowledge is we're not the whole. We're servants. And then ultimate knowledge comes when you step into that, when you act as a servant. That's knowledge. Or at least it's Vijnanam, applied knowledge.
Well, thanks to all of you.
I just wanted to say something about Kapil's statement about realized, the person not only who knows the concept, but who's living it. Sukadeva Goswami is described by Sudha Goswami here as an experienced transcendentalist, someone who's realized all these truths. I was listening to a talk by Armarendra yesterday, and something he said was stunning, and I thought it'd be worth sharing. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, "Surrender unto me, yesham tu andagatam jnana punya te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajanti." Those who have had a background of piety throughout many, many previous lives, who have not committed any sins since a long time, they're able to surrender to me. So as he explained it, Krishna was thinking, here I've asked everyone in the Bhagavad Gita to surrender to me, but I haven't surrendered to me. Krishna's thinking this way. I haven't surrendered to me. So how can I ask someone to do something that I haven't done? Or how can I ask someone to experience something that I haven't experienced? And so therefore, he came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vairagya Vija Nija Bhaktedam Shiksartam Ekapara Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sarir. Sarir means he came down and he assumed the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order, he's Krishna, but he's Krishna coming in order to have the experience of surrendering to Krishna. Otherwise, you say, how can you teach if you haven't actually done what it is you're teaching? So Krishna says, how can I ask people to surrender to me unless and until I surrender to me? And that's one of the reasons he descended as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
That's a great point, Prabhu. Thank you for sharing.
Well, thanks, Armarendra. All right, do we want to move on here? How many more paragraphs are there?
More.
How many?
One more, I think.
Okay, maybe someone we haven't heard from so far. Are you still there, Sundari Priya or Kruti, or who have we got here?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. Go ahead.
Do you want me to read the last paragraph?
Please do, yes.
Okay. Please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam is one unrevealed commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Sripad Shankaracharya intentionally did not touch it because he knew that the natural commentary would be difficult for him to surpass. He wrote his Shariraka Bhasya, and his so-called followers deprecated the Bhagavatam as some new presentation. One should not be misled by such propaganda directed against the Bhagavatam by the Mayavad school. From this introductory shloka, the beginning student should know that Srimad Bhagavatam is the only transcendental literature meant for those who are Paramahansas and completely freed from the material disease called malice. The Mayavadis are envious of the personality of Godhead despite Sripad Shankaracharya's admission that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is above the material creation. The envious Mayavadi cannot have access to the Bhagavatam, but those who are really anxious to get out of this material existence may take shelter of this Bhagavatam because it is uttered by the liberated Srila Sukadev Goswami. It is transcendental torchlight by which one can see perfectly this transcendental absolute truth realized as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. Jai. So we see here how Srimad Bhagavatam is such an Amal Purana, and it is only meant for Paramahamsas and it's transcendental, it's beyond anything. Basically, Srimad Bhagavatam is our deity. She is non-different than Krishna. When we come to the temple and look at the deity, that do the darshan, Krishna incarnated when he left this world. He said, I will incarnate myself as Srimad Bhagavatam. So we should have that same awe and reverence in reading and understanding Srimad Bhagavatam. And basically, the Mayavadi school, because we are so selfish as conditioned soul, we want to twist everything to our benefit. We want to use this knowledge. That's why we have so many translations of Bhagavad Gita, because everybody wants to not take it as it is. They want to give it like the way I want it, and because I identify with this body, I identify with my ego. The people want to twist the same thing. They want to take something powerful and use it to propagate. They'll take something from Bhagavatam and say, okay, fine, I'm going to do this 7-day Bhagavad Saptah, or so that you pay money and learn Bhagavatam. It's like they're taking it as very, very cheaply. And that we know those who are Paramahamsas, they know the true glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. And when we follow on the footsteps of our acharyas, that's why Srila Prabhupada didn't go to Brooklyn and start selling Bhagavatam. He was making people, he was living the person Bhagavatam, the life Bhagavatam, and the book Bhagavatam. He was a living example for us. And even today, they say, even if we touch Bhagavatam, or it is present in somebody's home, it has that potency to change and start transforming our lives. So it is not just a mundane book to be scholarly and say, okay, fine, I am so and so, and I've got so many degrees on Bhagavatam. It's not that. It is something that speaks to our heart. And Srila Sukdev Goswami has taken that, and he's make us understand that the Paramatma reveals slowly what the Bhagavatam really wants us to learn. So that's my limited understanding, Prabhuji. Please correct me if I've misspoken.
Nice point. Let me ask a question of anybody. How did Vyasadeva know that his son Sukadeva Goswami was already a liberated soul?
He walked away, right? When he was born, he just walked away.
But even before, it says that he spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to his son. So how did he...
Because he didn't want to come out of mother's belly, right? He was there for...
Yeah, exactly. That's how he knew.
100 years.
100 years?
16?
16
years, yeah.
Just 16.
Only 16 years, right? Such a short
16
time.
16 rounds of chanting. 16.
So then he knew that his son wasn't interested in anything the world had to offer. And that's why Vyasadeva didn't recite any other part of the Vedas. He only recited the Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam is for what class of men?
Paramhamsas?
Yes, Paramahamsa. Does anybody know the verse that says, after liberation, the only thing that will catch the interest is Srimad Bhagavatam? Anybody know that verse? Lord Chaitanya, I think, explained it like 50.
Atmaram Nishcha.
Yeah, Atmaramas Tamuneo, Naganti Api Urukraman Gre, Korvanti Haitikim Baptam, Itam Bhuta Gunahari. That's in first canto, 7th chapter, 10th verse. Atmaramas, it says, Atmaramas, they've given up all attraction for the material world. And so then the question might be raised, well, why are they reading about these? Why are they reading about Krishna killing Salva, and Krishna herding cows, and Krishna doing this and that? Because Krishna is not anything to do with the material world. Their attraction doesn't go towards that which is changing to all dead matter. But just because you're liberated doesn't mean that you lost your attractive power. Liberation doesn't mean that you become a dead stone like the Buddhists aspire to. It just means that you get attracted to the real thing, the thing that's not temporary, the thing that's the original living being. So it says that the devotee, those who are liberated, they don't get rid of their hankerings, but they hanker after Krishna. They don't hanker after Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, but they hanker after Krishna. That's why Vyasadeva, he had all this corpus, he had all this books that he'd written, thousands and thousands of books, but he picked the Srimad Bhagavatam to read to his son while his son was in the womb, because he knew his son wouldn't come out to pursue Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha, but he would come out in order to serve the Lord, in order to practice bhakti seva.
Even acharyas, they comment when he was born as impersonalist, so he just walked away. And then Srila Vyasadeva, he cited those verses, only 2 verses to bring him back. And one was describing beauty of Krishna, and other was when he liberated Putana. And just by hearing those 2 verses, he comes back. And such is beauty of Bhagavatam.
Anything in your vast, eclectic religious experience, Govinda, to resonate with any of this?
Wow, we're really running thick with the sarcasm today, aren't we?
I think eclectic wasn't the right word. Ecclesiastic. Ecclesiastic, I think, was the word I should have used.
Well, yes. I think I've mentioned in this Zoom call once before that I feel like the LDS Church, of which I'm a practicing member, has slowly been drifting into a form of impersonalism, because there is increasingly less devotion towards deity itself, towards Jesus and towards God the Father, and more on abstractions of different types, and which are incapable of capturing your heart. So that's about as vast as I get, but I think it's a critical concern, because if you're really not cultivating the true need of the human soul, which is to love God, you are not going to be ultimately attracting people in a way that's satisfying in the way that it can be. You're not going to be giving people God consciousness. I don't know how it is practiced in other faiths, but it's there's really no sense of renunciation. I mean, liberation really is not even a concept, say, in Christianity. But the attachment has to be to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or it ultimately won't be satisfying. That's about.
It says, Vishaya vinivartate naraha shavarjanam rashoham rashopya param drishta nivartate. We're dependent living beings. We have to be attracted to something. We can't be in a state of non-attraction. And in the conditioned world, we're either attracted or being frustrated by the attraction, we're repulsed. Ragadvesha, vimuktesh. We're bouncing back between attraction and rejection, attraction and rejection. But some or other, we have to have something to focus on, something to orbit around. That's how we're made. So if you don't get knowledge from a bona fide source about the all-attractive Lord, then you're not going to be able to be in a state of non-attraction. It's not possible. You're a sentient being. You have senses, and the senses go out. The senses extend themselves to the sense objects. So if you don't develop attraction for the Lord, who's transcendental to the material senses, then you can't just be renounced. You're going to have to be attracted to the things of this world. So if someone can't speak specifically and in detail and with love about the personality of Godhead, then we know for a fact there's very little difference between their hankerings and the hankerings of a materialist.
Now that was a very profound statement. That's what I was trying to say.
Well, I was just rephrasing what you said already.
Oh, it brought some real clarity. Thank you.
Okay. So anybody's welcome to jump in, but I'm going to ask Onkar to wrap it up here. He's gave a wonderful talk last night. I'm sure his mind is teeming with philosophical consideration. So if nobody else has anything to say, I ask Onkar to give us a summary statement here of what we've covered this morning.
Thank
So just one quick small point. Thank you. Sorry, Omkar Prabhu. I was just saying that reading the last three sentences also gave me an impression of relationship management. Because like any relationship, be it personal, professional, spiritual, you need more than one person and often more people. And then for us to establish and nourish that relationship, one must know the other person. Not only the likings, but also the dislikings, the prowess, the shortcomings. So I really liked the last three sentences when Prabhupada says that it is the transcendental torchlight by which one can see the transcendental absolute truth realized as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. Often when people say, like when at the outset when we started with some commentaries that how people mistreat Bhagavad Gita because they don't know the Supreme Personality, and there is no relationship. When you don't know the person in that relationship, then it's hard to first understand the relationship with that person, and then two, to cherish that relationship. So I think this is a very strong message where you say that if you read this book, then you know the person. And once you know the person, then it's hard to say that I don't love this person. So that I really like that point.
Yeah, we find throughout the Western countries where there's a lack of information about the personality of Godhead, the whole idea of devoting oneself, heart, mind, body, soul, the whole idea of escaping, wanting to go to the spiritual world, it's not really there. Prabhupada says here, all you have to do is want it. That's all you have to do. You have to want it, but you have to want it more than anything else. When you think about Krishna and the spiritual world, tears should start rolling down your cheeks, not when you think about your truck or your political leader or your gun collection, or yeah. So all we have to do, it's very simple, we just have to want it. But as Kapil said, people don't want it. They don't want it. I mean, it's okay. They'll take it when they die. They'll pay their tithing. They'll go to church. They'll hit all the right buttons in order to go to the spiritual world. But it's not like they want it. It's just like they pay their insurance premium every month. When the things that I'm really interested in are taken away, then I want something to replace them. And probably the spiritual world is a place where I can have a better car and a better house, and there are better freeways, and they don't have to be maintained. So okay, I'll make sure I'll insure myself against having nothing. But in terms of wanting, in terms of crying for, in terms of hankering, it's definitely not there in the Western countries.
Sorry, Omkar Prabhu, over to you. And we need to hear Kruti Mataji as well.
You are welcome to go ahead, Kruti Mataji, before I summarize.
It's just the last para that I just want to add a few more points. I grew up pretty much hearing to this Bhaja Govindam by Sripad Shankaracharya. Like Prabhupada mentions that Shankaracharya, who's a main proponent of impersonalism, even he agreed at the end that there's nothing else that can save us from this material misery, or the true liberation is serving Govinda. There's a verse in the Bhaja Govindam which says Sakradaviye Murari Samarcha. He didn't take anybody else's name, but he took Murari's name. So that way, even the main proponent of impersonalism is saying we have to take the service of Govinda, and also from the right source. Like I remember one of the examples is when Hiranyaksha died. Hiranyakashipu was giving this entire knowledge about soul and body, but he anyways ended up being a demon. So and going against the Lord, and in fact troubling the devotees of the Lord. So the soul, whatever could be the level of knowledge, or it could seem very opulent prowess, but if the source is not acknowledged and the goal that it needs, the right goal that it needs to be used for, then it's not the right place to go for knowledge. So that way, this knowledge coming down from Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Shukadeva Goswami, is where we have to put our ears and take up to their instructions, is what I wanted to add.
So some or other, Hiranyakashipu, he came across a very high level of spiritual knowledge, but in the end, he just wasn't interested in practicing it. And that happens. That's directly addressed. Tadashma saram ridam batedam yad grima harinamadeha navarikire yada netre jalam gatorushu harsha. Says it doesn't matter how much philosophy they know or how much you preach to them, but if someone has a heart that's steel framed, then it will not penetrate. They will not. They can hear it. They can even repeat it, but there's a steel frame around them heart that keeps the knowledge from affecting them. Above and beyond all, you have to be soft-hearted. Arjuna may have faltered in doing his duty in the beginning of the Gita, but it was for a good reason, because he was soft-hearted. He did not want to cause pain unnecessarily. He wanted to do the right thing. But Hiranyakashipu wasn't interested in what's right and what's wrong. He was only interested in what would gratify his senses. So that's a really good point. Thanks for your contribution.
Thank you.
So, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Now I'll summarize today's our discussion. So today we discussed on third verse of the second chapter, and Srila Prabhupada says that this verse summarizes practically the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sutta Goswami summarizes this one, and he says that it is a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Srila Prabhupada says that Vyasadeva was knew that some people in the Kali Yuga may misinterpret Vedanta Sutra, so he wanted to provide with a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, so he gave it in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the second paragraph, we discussed that most of the people are suffering, all of the people are suffering in this world, but they don't want to leave this world. The part they are liking, they just want to desire to leave this world, but they are still not doing that. Just as the camel who is chewing the thorns and but is tasting his own blood as sweet honey. Similarly, people are tasting their own blood and still they are in the illusion that they are happy. So Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing that one should desire to leave this material world. And the third paragraph, Srila Prabhupada discuss about the commentaries of Shankaracharya, Sharirika Bhashya, and he did not particularly wanted to comment on it because he knew that it will be difficult to surpass this commentary. So that is so this was a very wonderful verse that described the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam and the overall fate of the people in material world. So I guess that was summary of our today's discussion.
Wow, nice summary.
Wow. Right.
You remind me of Chaitanya Charan.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of Chaitanya Charan Prabhu.
Yeah, Chaitanya Charan will talk to somebody. He'll interview someone in his monk's podcast, and it'll go on for well over an hour. And he's not taking any notes, but he always summarizes. And he hits every point. He hits every point, just like Onkar did. Amazing.
5 minute summary, we can always get a good grasp of the whole class. So if we are running very short on time, then we can just hear his summary and still get a good grasp on the whole.
That's a great,
Yeah.
great
And
ability.
that's the quality of a good student, or I should say the brightest student.
I mean, I can respond to, the latest point. I can respond to that. But if you ask me what we were talking about 15 minutes ago, forget it. I'm impressed.
He has a sharp memory, Prabhuji. I always ask him how many days since I last visited, and he can tell me 5 days, 3 days, 11 days. He counts, so he has a very sharp memory. He doesn't need anything to write; it's all written there.
And he lives in Salt Lake City. Hari Bo.
Haribol, yes, Haribol.
It's my great fortune, Prabhu, to be with all of you.
And ours that you are.
Yes, it's our fortune. Yes, for sure.
All right, it's been great. Everyone contributed in such a fluid, natural, spontaneous way. It was just like the whole hour was like a river just flowing with all kinds of different flavors and currents and speeds and everything. It's wonderful. I feel like, wow, totally satisfied to have spent the time with y'all. So let's go to the Kirtan, back to Twila, to round things out. I think Pavana Mataji this time will do it.
You may be muted, so you just need to unmute yourself.
There we go. Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Charu,
All right. It wasn't letting me. The unmute button had disappeared. But thank you. Thank you. And everybody made a wonderful contribution today. Kruti, did you get Kruti's information, Govinda, for sending the prayers and all?
Prabhu, you are also on mute.
I'm on mute?
No, Govinda.
I'm on mute. No, I
Oh.
don't think that would come as a chat message.
You can just
do not-
click chat and then drop down Govinda, or you can do it to everyone. Doesn't matter.
Okay,
then
I found it.
he
I
can-
found George Prabhu.
Okay.
So I can just send my
Go ahead.
information over to him.
I'll prolong the meeting until you give me
Sure.
an indication that you've sent it and Govinda Dev has received it.
Okay.
This may not come to you, Kruti, until tomorrow morning.
Sure, Prabhuji. I can wait.
But then you'll have the rest of your life to learn it. But you should try to do it in 1 week.
Okay.
Oh, is there a particular time that you are meeting with Govinda Bhakta Prabhu, or you guys are doing it virtual, or?
Well, the first step is to learn the pranam mantras at the beginning of the songs of Vaishnava acharyas. And that some of that for me was very familiar, but some of it not so familiar, like the pranams to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and Bhakti Vinod Thakur. But that's the way he wants to do it, because he says that those mantras should be said before doing arti.
Also, Bhakti Vinod and Gorky Shore as well.
Yeah, if you have that book, Songs of the Vaishnava Acharyas, I think it's the first 10 pages right up to when right until you get to the Maha Mantra.
Got it, Prabhu. Got it. Prabhu, add us to Vinita and I to that list as well.
Okay.
You need some students who can make you feel good.
Okay. This is catching on nicely. Very good. I'll prefer to conclude.
By doing so poorly in the class, they help other students to feel better.
It will help me to feel better.
So I did send over the contact information to Josh Prabhu. I don't know if he's received it though.
Did you get
Yes,
it?
I will email to you.
Make a note of it. Make a note of it before I shut everything down here.
Oh, hold on, let me take a picture of that. Done.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
I have Kapil's email address.
Okay.
But don't give me wrong prayers just to make you feel good. Give me the same prayers.
All right.
Very well, bro.
Whatever you give others, Kapil wants you to give him. He doesn't want to get less.
Same ones.
Any other last points? We have a family coming today at Spanish Fork to serve full time. We're excited. They should be arriving. In fact, maybe they arrive during this program.
That's great, bro.
Oh, you'll all have a chance to meet them sooner or later.
So is that the family that you out from California? Is that the same family?
Yeah, from New Dwarka. And we asked Savas, what are they like? Are they good? And he said, yes, they're very good. So we have a good reference from the president of Los Angeles Temple. Indrani and Raleigh, and I think his name he's a 13-year-old boy, but he knows how to fix cars and all kinds of stuff. His name is, I think, Ram Mohan. So.
Also, we need a speaker for next Saturday's talk.
Anybody volunteer? It says TBA on the schedule. I was thinking I'd do it, but if any of you being right there would like to do it, it's good. Are you now so ignited, Onkar, that you'd want to do back-to-back talks?
Whatever you say, Prabhuji. If someone else wants to do, I am okay with it. I don't have any.
Okay.
We can discuss on the Tuesday evening then.
Okay. Okay. All right. Because I'm due to come the next week. I know that.
14 November, you will be coming, right?
That's Diwali.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't miss that for the world. Okay. We'll discuss on Tuesday then. Thank you so much. It gets better each and every week.
Yes.
Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindhubhyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.